Hello and welcome to NCAS webinar Lockdown 2.0. We're back in lockdown, although they don't call it that these days. But we are here again, and fortunately we have Gillian, who's just popped up. We were worried she wasn't going to make it. Hello, Jill. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm not used to this one. That's why I was a bit slow, because I've normally got my posh background and stuff, and you've only got my bookcase now.
Oh, it's better than mine. I've been trying to look like I've got a fez on all day, so that quite works. But so we have Gillian. Obviously, we have the lovely Tay and the lovely Victoria from Greenwich. Gillian's from Monmouthshire, just on the Welsh English border. And they are our lovely environmental health primary authority partners, and they are here to talk to you about the big changes that have occurred in the last couple of days. Obviously, Gillian being in Wales, they've had a very different situation there for the last few weeks. They had their circuit breaker, which I believe is now coming to an end, or has just come to an end, where at the same time in England, we've just got into Tier 4 lockdown 2.0, I'm not sure what we call it, but we're there. And it's difficult and it's challenging, so we're here to talk you guys through what that's going to mean and how that's going to. So, thanks for joining us all, guys. We're obviously got quite a lot to get through today, so I'm trying to speak as well as possible. It's not like me, but you guys are the ones with the knowledge, so I'm going to kind of let you get on and go through it. But very quickly, just about the new rules. Obviously, they were. I was actually on holiday when they were announced, which was great. So I didn't have anything to do and just ignored my phone for a day. But the new rules basically mean that everybody has to shut. Hospitality venues are shutting. If you're not operating as a takeaway, you're basically not able to trade. There have been some big questions around alcohol with that, which we're going to cover. And we're also going to look at new options such as click and collect and delivery and things like that. So without further ado, rapid shutdown. So basically businesses had to shut pretty much within a couple of days. That would have been very challenging for them. For those that are shutting down, obviously there is financial support for many of them through the government schemes. But from a food safety or from a sort of business point of view, Tay, what would your recommendations be for any business thinking, right, have I done the right things to shut effectively? What should I be wearing?
Yeah, and I think it's really difficult, and there can be lots of reasons why people have had to shut down, because of the lockdown itself, or where staff have been ill and they've just not been able to manage the self-isolation requirements and keep trading and that sort of stuff. So there are going to be those eventualities where business needs to close at short notice. And so it's really thinking about, as you mentioned, the FSA checklist that you've got on your website as well, thinking about your stock, how you're going to store it, what you're going to be able to keep, what you're not going to be able to keep. Do you want to redistribute some of your food for surplus elsewhere? And those kind of things, making sure you cancel your deliveries. God forbid that you actually, get more stuff tried to be delivered while you're closed and you've just forgotten about it. Any appointments for maintenance and stuff that you've got scheduled going on whilst you might be closed. Checking over your storage areas, making sure that they're going to be pest-free, and as well keeping in place some sort of check to make sure that somebody goes in every now and then just to make sure that things are okay, making sure your machinery is safe and closed down, thinking about your rubbish, making sure your rubbish is put out before you go, and just kind of keeping in touch with your staff as well, making sure that they're okay and you've got some arrangements in place, because it is, it might be fine, it might be all kind of quite calm, but it also might all happen a bit quicker than you think it's going to. And you might need a bit of time just to reflect on it. And that's why the checklist, I think, is a really nice example of just kind of, you can come back to it and just make sure you've thought about everything. And then obviously NCAS have got the reopening checklist as well for when you're ready to get started again. And your local EHOs can also give you any advice or anything that you need. But making sure that you've got some checks in place. It might be stuff like, if you're going to be closed for a long time, that you need to run your taps every now and then to make sure you don't get Legionella build up and that sort of stuff. So, but the checklists are a really useful resource for that.
I think that there's a lot of sort of issues around people reopening last time with rodents and things like that getting in. So these these pests can smell food from quite a way away, miles, and they can pretty much eat through anything to get to it. So yeah, I mean, if you've got anything that could be attracting vermin, you probably want to get it out.
And particularly during the winter where it's a bit cold, pests don't like the cold as much as anybody else. They'll want to be indoors, getting some shelter, nice bit of food, bit of water, and that sort of stuff. You know, they'll be quite happy to hang out inside, probably more so than they would during the summer. So just some kind of regular checks, making sure that, and that way, when you're ready to get back up and going again, you are ready as soon as possible. You haven't then got loads of stuff to organise to get yourselves back open again.
Yeah, and we had problems with people with pest controllers that shut. So when it reopened and they couldn't actually get the problems fixed, so it caused all kinds of problems. So do stay on top of that, guys. That's the kind of thing that could really affect your business. You know, you can end up in all kinds of trouble. You can make people ill. Yeah, it's just not a place you want to be. We've done a little bit of signposting. So if somebody's starting, I mean, obviously it's quite a bold move, but it is happening. People are looking to hustle. People are looking to open businesses at the moment. What advice would you be giving for them at the moment? Victoria, bit of a nice tough one for you.
Yeah, initial point of contact would be a local authority environmental health officer or even in-case accounts manager. Any new business would need to register with their local authority at least 28 days before they intend to start trading. But as I say, there's a wealth of information available on the NCAS site that, you know, would give advice about who to contact or you know, how to comply with legislative requirements. Other things to consider would be, you know, if somebody intends to sell alcohol, that they've got the appropriate licensing and that kind of thing. But yeah, initially, I would say liaise with local authority, EHO, in-case account manager, and there's also information readily available on the Food Standards Agency website too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one bit of advice would be just don't assume anything, because, you know, when people starting up, especially street food businesses and things like that, they make certain assumptions. And the classic one was always, you want to put a burger van outside Buckingham Palace, and, you know, there's a reason there isn't one outside Buckingham Palace. It's not because no one there; it's because the Queen doesn't want one there. And you know, so just be kind of, ask the right questions. Definitely speak to your account manager at NCAS, especially if you're looking at like where you can trade from, if you're a mobile caterer, or, you know, how you would operate click and collect or a delivery service, or, you know, using things like Facebook Marketplace in a safe and legal way, because I know that there have been concerns about non-professional food businesses using that service. So, you know, just make sure that, you know, because we're in this COVID pandemic, things are a little bit trickier. So don't make assumptions, ask the right questions.
And the registrations are such a simple process. It takes a matter of minutes to do it. It's a really simple process. Once you're registered, then you can get on with the platforms. If you want to be on Just Eat or Deliveroo or Uber or any of those things that enables you to get on the platforms, you can put yourself on Facebook Marketplace and Instagram or whatever else you want to do. And then, as I say, it's a super quick and easy process to do it. You'll get registered and inspected by your local authority, and then we can help you guide your business, you know, and make your business as much as it can be. Take it from that initial idea, and you'll have a fledged business that people will hopefully want to come to and buy things from.
And I think, would you say that some people see it as like a ticking clock? So what, I'm not going to register until I'm ready to register, and, you know, I want to be trading on the 29th day, so I'm not going to register at that point. Do you think, if you know you're going to open a food business, just get it registered, would you say?
I think there is also an element of, you do need to be ready. We do get a lot of registrations from people that just have an idea that they might like to start up a food business. So wait until you're ready. You know, you can always contact us before, but wait until you're actually ready, because as soon as you do your registration, that's what starts our process going. And otherwise you'll just be kind of harassed by the local authority with the best intentions, with us saying, are you ready? Are you ready? Can we come round? And that sort of stuff. So get yourself ready so that you're ready to trade, and then the process can begin. And as I say, and you'll have hopefully a fabulously successful business, and that will be brilliant. But yeah, we do get a lot of registrations. We have had a lot of registrations recently during this year particularly. And we are out and inspecting them, but we're not out and inspecting them perhaps as quickly as we might have been in previous years. So it is just worth, you might have to bear with your local authority, and for that reason as well, try and make sure that you're ready to trade when you get registered, just to help us manage.
The process is free, so there's no cost involved, is there? So it's it's free of charge, and it is a legal requirement. So if you don't register and start to trade, you will be in breach of legislation. And
you can speak to lovely people like Tay, Victoria, and Jill for free. Experts who are brilliant at what they do. So register and build a relationship with your local authority. They are there to help you. They want you to sell safe food. If you do that, they're going to be super happy with you. So that's the way to see it. They're not there to they're not there to act as teacher. They're there to or maybe teacher is the right one, but they're there to help essentially. And if you get it right, then they're getting it right. So it's a team thing. Jill, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. Can you explain to us what's different in Wales obviously it's the beautiful countryside and the people are lovely, but beyond that, what COVID restrictions dealt to you guys instead of us?
Yeah, well, as of yesterday, we also came out of our fire break, as it was called by the Welsh Minister. So that's 17 days of being in lockdown. Food premises were already allowed to trade anyway, so that's continued throughout. The changes now really are going to be basically the English are being kept out. You're not allowed in. And alternatively, we're not allowed out either. So the cross-border stuff at the moment is very restricted and won't happen until they review it every fortnight, really, as to how things are going. So we can move around Wales now. That's fine. So if you've got business in Wales, you can move around Wales, and the restrictions that were localised before in certain areas are now dropped to an all Wales approach. So there are still things in, such as you can have a number of people indoors, up to 15 people, but it's only for specific things, certain activities and things like that. And again, it's still the 30 people outside. So those haven't really changed, to be honest, and they're very similar as they were before the fire break and it previously into lockdown. So there's not a huge amount of difference, to be honest. We're allowed to go out and buy a microwave, which is incredible, but there we are. So it means that all businesses are now opening and operating, but it's going to be really looking at your COVID controls in place that will be important, and your face masks and where you wear them and how you wear them and who wears them. So that's going to be the thing really that will be looked at with regards complying with the COVID regulations, to be honest. So if you're in a public area, and I assume this is similar to England, I'm not sure. If you're in members of staff in a public area at all, they have to wear their masks. They must be wearing masks at all times. And that goes for anybody moving around any premises at all as well. If you're not sat at a table, you have to wear a mask, and there can only be alcohol served at a table. So that still remains, and it still remains that it cannot be sold beyond 10 o'clock. So that's kind of the basic ones that's happening in Wales at the moment.
So tomorrow is meant to be the day that the got reviewed. I think it's a bit late for that now. So, I mean, how does that differ from where we are in England? What restrictions are businesses having to accommodate?
Well, obviously, we've no longer got, you can't sit and eat in a restaurant anymore. The requirements for face coverings still exist here. Face covering when you're in the premises, face covering on public transport, and those, face covering when you're in a shop and that sort of thing. So, as I say, those requirements are still the same here. But what it has happened here is we've closed certain sectors of our business, and they're now only open for delivery, click and collect type services, but the face covering requirement still remains the same.
Okay, so it's very similar to where we were before, isn't it? Really, it's kind of a combination of these different measures, but with the lockdown kind of thrown on top of it. But we are here for the next month, and obviously we had some very good news. Not to get too excited, but we did have some very good news yesterday about a potential vaccine, which I think we all deserved a bit of good news, really. So hopefully that will pan out positively. What are the things? So face covering wise, do people still have to wear that outside? Would that still count as a premises? If you were, say, in a gazebo, serving food, serving click and collect food, I don't suppose you would you?
I would say basically you've got to look at what's not necessarily you're allowed or not allowed to do, but what are we trying to achieve here and what's sensible? I mean, you really have to think that what the whole point of doing this is to reduce the load. If you've got it, you're asymptomatic, that you're passing it on to somebody else. And that's really the thing we ought to be looking at. It's not whether really do I have to wear a mask. It's look, why am I doing this in the first place? This is the important bit, and this is what people and the public need to understand, really, the reason we're doing this. So although if you're outdoors, you might not have to wear it, but hey, if I'm sat outside and I'm being served by someone, I'd be looking at why aren't they wearing a mask? You know, they're moving around. Why aren't they wearing a mask? So that's how I'd look at it. And if you're indoors, you have to wear one anyway. So anywhere. So that stands. But it's really, you know, if you're in a mobile van and you're looking at, well, I don't have to wear one because I'm outside, I've got the front open, but you've got to look at, well, hey, why are we doing this? What is a sensible thing to do here? What are your customers expecting and what do they want? And to be honest, I would want and expect them to be wearing a mask because that would be the sensible thing to do. That's how I feel anyway.
I think that's kind of, for me, that's kind of the number of it all, really. You know, one of the big, we deal with lots of questions every day. I'm sure you guys are dealing with lots of different questions every day. And it really does come down to this spirit of the law issue. And while we sympathise with people desperately trying to find workarounds so they can keep trading or they can keep trading in the way that they want to, it's not really about finding workarounds. It is about really understanding that the sooner we're all playing the game, the sooner that we're all doing this properly. You know, if we all work as a team, as a nation, to reduce wherever possible any risk of transmission, then we'll get out of it sooner. And so I think the alcohol one's a classic one for this. You know, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I? If I put a seat out, can people sit on it? It's just don't get out of that mindset. It's a case of, how do I do this safely for my staff and my customers? And if I can't, then maybe I need to shut.
Yeah, and I think it's reassuring. I think your customers nowadays expect to see it. They want to see that you're a responsible business and you're following the law, because they know themselves that when they go into a shop, they have to wear a covering. So that, customers now are used to doing this. We're not back at the start of the year where people didn't really get what the whole thing was about. So it's really about making your customers feel, that you're looking after them as well, because this is the bit your customers will see. And it's important to remember, obviously, that a face covering needs to cover your nose and your mouth. It doesn't just cover your mouth. You don't wear it under your chin or, on top of your head or wherever you think you might want to put it. The term, it is a face covering. It needs to cover your nose and your mouth completely.
I mean, that was one of the things that I noticed in the American election, how badly people wear face masks in America. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. But yeah, I think they're really making customers feel safe is a critical thing. I think early reports were that about 30 to 40% of all customers just disappeared with COVID. People are not leaving their houses, or they're not making non-essential journeys, whether they're shielding, whether they have their own reasons, whether they are concerned, or whether they just don't want to go out. There's all kinds of reasons why these customers are not going out to buy things, and we need to win them back, and we do that by giving them the confidence that if they do come out, then they're going to be safe if they come to our establishments.
Yeah, and on a personal level, this is always one of the things that I'm sure Victoria and Jill would say the same thing. People always ask me on a personal level, how do I know that it's okay where I'm going to eat, because I can't see the kitchen? And traditionally I might have said, well, go and see if there's some hand soap in the toilet or something like that. And now I'm like, well, look, do they look like they're looking after you?
Is that the question you get asked at parties when you tell people you're in HOs? Where can I eat safely?
Your customers know that they have to wear a covering, and so they expect to see that you're looking after them. And this is the bit they can see. They can't see what's going on in the kitchen, but they know what they can see by the person that's serving them.
Yeah. And the name of the game is hospitality. It's our job to be hospitable, to deliver for all of these customers and to delight them in every moment. So, yeah, wear your masks, get your mitigation measures, and make sure your staff understand them and follow them. And really, it's about protecting your staff and your customers and your business reputation. As Tay mentioned earlier, business is about to shut because of the requirement to self-isolate. So, if you cut a corner on a face mask here, you might shut for 2 weeks, a week down the line. So, it's not the time to be cutting corners with a deadly pandemic on the loose. Jill, you look like you're about to say something really interesting. Then have I put you on the spot? I thought you were going to jump in.
Really.
No, I thought it would have been. In terms of some of the questions that we've been receiving, we've had some really interesting ones. I just want to find one earlier because it got people talking amongst the group when we were kind of for this, and it was, do you think we're going to go back to a new? When will the new normal be? Will it be the old normal? When will things get back to normal? And obviously, it's tea leaf stuff, really. But what are your thoughts on this, ladies? What is there? Will we ever go back to normal?
I don't know whether there'll be such a thing. I mean, it all depends on the vaccine, doesn't it, to be honest, and how effective that is. And it's all very new news out on that front, to be honest. So we really don't know. What I do know is, for example, Welsh Government fund the Test, Track, Protect, which we do in Wales, and that's in my team. And we've been told that the funding will probably go beyond the 31st of March. So they're not looking at suddenly, hey, tick box, it's all happened and we're all okay. So I imagine, no, it's not going to go away that quickly, even if we do have a vaccine, because it will become, obviously, they have to determine who gets that first, and it'll have to be spread out through that route. But no, it's not going to be returned to normal for a very long time, I feel. But the amount of adaptations that have been done by businesses and how we've diversified and changed things, I think it's just, and not just that, but the way that we're working for example, this route, doing this now, it's changed so dramatically that I think businesses can adapt and a change with the new ways that there are, because the population is still out there, and the population will want to get back to having to eat out because that's what they really enjoy. So it's just doing that, but doing it in a way that's acceptable and safe, and we know we're going to be able to manage the controls in place that we need. So yeah, there won't be a new normal. It won't be for a long time, but I think working on it, you can certainly achieve something to get back to businesses that can trade in safety for the customers.
Yeah, I agree with Jill. We've really just got to get through these next few months. We know that small businesses and members like yours, Mark, we know they're really agile and they've adapted and done brilliantly during this really challenging time. They've been able to really adapt their businesses and try and make something of it. And we just need to kind of push on through this next bit and hopefully come out the next side. Because as Jill says, people still want to go out to eat. That's evident. We see that all the time. We see that all the time. People are desperate to get back out there and kind of get going again. So we've just got to kind of push on through and, yeah, go with it, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Victoria, what are your thoughts?
Sorry, yes, along the same lines of Tay and Jill, really. Who knows with this vaccine? I mean, will it offer lifelong protection? Will it only last for a certain period? What if the virus mutates? But I think the key thing I'd like to emphasise is the importance at the moment, like Boris is emphasising, of sticking to the rules and social distancing, and that don't get too excited about the vaccine at the moment. We still need to stay as we are, stick to the protocols, stick to the rules and the regulations until we're satisfied that there's a proper control in place, or that there's you can be far more positive about the future. But as we've said, I think the importance for businesses, stay strong, try and stay positive, stay resilient. I think most businesses have got their control measures in place. As we said, they've adapted to different ways of working. They are coping. So just stick with it, and hopefully, there will be an end in sight eventually. Just stay with it.
I don't think we'll ever go back to where it was before. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. You just can't turn back time. And, I think that the new normal will be a merger of the current normal and the old normal. And then whatever gets adapted between it. So there's different pressures on different parts of the sector. I imagine that the function side of things will probably open up reasonably soon. When things start to relax, people want to get married, people will want to have birthday parties and other celebrations and things like that. And I think that, as we're seeing in Wales, smaller groups are beginning to be allowed. Obviously, it's they're testing the water and seeing what works, and there'll be 2 steps forward, 3 steps back approach, no doubt, for the next couple of months. But in a similar way to Jill's hearing that it's going to go on beyond March, I've been hearing. July, you're looking at before anything, before there's major changes happening, just in terms of getting vaccines out there and all the other things that are going to have to happen. And obviously, July was around about when last year we got opened up, so it would make sense if the NHS has coped, hopefully, and all the other things have gone down in the right way, that by July things will be on their way back to normal, but probably not normal. But I do think that yesterday's announcement will hopefully give confidence to the events industry, because there's a lot of issues in terms of confidence in the events industry to invest. Obviously, millions of pounds were lost at Southampton Boat Show. Not saying anything. That is something that needs to be overcome. And obviously, insurance is a major issue now for the events industry. Who will insure a major event? If you can catch COVID and sue the event organizer at their event, then how can you put on an event? So that's something that the event industry is trying to get the government to engage on. As far as I know, there's a fund has been put forward and the government have been asked to match it, just so that the events industry can be insured next year. But I think that the vaccine will begin to enable confidence to return there. And I think over the next couple of months, we'll hopefully see tickets going on sale, and certainly from the middle to the back end of the season next year, we should see things becoming a bit more normal. But yeah, as mentioned, a lot of it's going to depend on A, the vaccine, and B, what we can learn over the next few months in terms of what works best in terms of mitigation. Do curfews work? Do lockdowns work? And that kind of thing. I think we'll have a far better idea, especially with so many different countries taking slightly different approaches. I think they'll be able to work out, what things really do work and what doesn't, and hopefully we'll be backed up by a vaccine which will start to bring this to an end. But yeah, very challenging times, but I don't think that we could honestly, hand on heart, say to anyone things will be back to normal at a certain time of day with any confidence. But to summarise really the innovation that has gone on within our sector and the wider industry to keep trading and to find ways to stay busy and to keep earning has been pretty remarkable. I think that stands us in good stead for the next few months. Obviously, some government financial support would also be nice if they're watching. The only ones that haven't had any, if you're watching. But anyway, that was not a...
I think if businesses, sorry, Mark, if businesses want to diversify, and we found this, and I assume everywhere else found this, pubs that had to shut and things like that, they opened up as veg delivery, and all sorts of things were happening. And it's the same with mobile traders. They're in a perfect position to provide a delivery service in some ways. And it's really, what we say is look at the information that you've got within your NCAS membership and your documentation there, but also do contact your local environmental health officer, because we can give advice on over the phone, you know, on what you need to do, because quite often some will not have done delivery because they've just served or something like that. But there's massive, we've already been through this, so we've got a lot of experience and knowledge now learned from the first time round that we can pass on to people, and even give them ideas on what to do, because I know you know you're back to takeaway only, I assume, and click and collect and all that in you know, within England. We've just come out of that, but it's amazing what people can do despite the restrictions that are now imposed, and you can continue or just slightly twist the way you do things. But if you do want to twist the way you do things, just make sure you're doing it right, and you get the information and the backup from either yourselves or your EHO.
Yeah, and I think that yeah, now's a really good opportunity to look into things like click and collect, and also the drive-through option, click and collect drive-through. NCAS have a blueprint for that. There's an app called No Queue that you could literally set it up on in a day, and all you do is pay commission on sales. So you know, there's now actually the technology there as well to support people to get set up into to pivot into these different business models, which is exciting. We're getting lots of questions coming through on the chat, so I'll just see if I can get some of those. Okay, so if you have seating outside a mobile unit, can I still use it? I think the answer to that's no, isn't it?
It's no.
Yeah.
It is takeaway only. It's not takeaway and then sit down on somebody's tables and chairs. That was outdoor seating. That's what we had during the summer. No, it is takeaway only.
Or is it? Is it that you can use it but your guests can't? So you can sit down and have a cigarette and then go back and cook.
We've advised people just to take the tables and chairs in. It just gets too complicated. If you leave the tables and chairs out, somebody will sit down on them, and then somehow you've got to ask them to stand up off the tables and chairs, and you'll have a conversation that you didn't really want to have in the first place.
Yeah.
So we have just advised people where they can to take the tables and chairs in, save yourself the trouble. It is takeaway only. Don't forget, obviously in England, our lockdown will expire automatically at the beginning of December, and then we will move back into the tiers. So for us, then it will be about which tier that we fall into. We're not talking about this running on indefinitely. Well, 3 for you, 2 in London we were before. But yeah, we're not talking about this running on indefinitely. You know, Parliament seemed pretty clear that that's not, you know, we're not going to be into another 6 months of this, hopefully. It will go back into the tiers, and it will just be about where about in those tiers we sit. So at the moment, we can just do our best, comply with the requirements, and all contribute as individuals to try and make sure that we get back to where we want to be as quickly as possible. So yeah, we would say to people, just take the tables and chairs in if you can. Don't do yourself the hassle of trying to explain to people why they can't sit down. And if one person sits down, then 50 people sit down, because everyone thinks, oh great, I'll sit down there as well. It just makes it too complicated from what we've seen in our borough.
Yeah, you don't want to be a hall monitor. You know,
No.
You know, don't make yourself when you don't need.
Nice, a friendly and successful business, not having to go at people about sitting down on tables and chairs.
Yeah, arguing with your customers is never a good look.
No.
So just don't give them the chairs. So I've been asked you know, to go through you know, what questions businesses should be asking themselves if they are going to pivot and open as a takeaway. I mean, it's pretty much the same as if you're opening for any food business, I would imagine, in terms of, you know, do I meet the food hygiene requirements? I mean, that's a given. You know, you have to maintain a food safe business. It's a legal requirement. And you know, would it be possible to meet the COVID controls? I mean, obviously that's an easy thing to say. Yes, I've met the COVID controls, but you know, what kind of thought processes would you recommend people go through, and what resources do you think they should be using to do that?
On the changing from a kind of static to more takeaway, you are going to have to look a bit more carefully at your allergen controls, your labeling and stuff like that, because the information you have to be able to give to people. So just make sure you've got all the information there. I would say is important, because takeaway is not like someone sat down with a menu in front of them and with all the information on it there, and they're able to make an informed decision as to what they eat. So you're going to have to make sure that your labeling and your allergens particularly are fully up to date, so you can give it verbally, as you should be able to anyway. But with a takeaway, it just becomes that bit more a necessary requirement, to be honest.
Yeah, allergens are a massive thing for people to get right, and especially with mobile caterers where your menu isn't actually that extensive usually, and you're probably not changing it that often. Everyone within that business should have a very clear understanding of what's in that food and how that might impact on certain customers. So Tay, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. And there's lots of resource out there. There's lots of info on the local authority websites, the FSA websites. NCAS has its own member resource available as well about running your business as a takeaway and that sort of stuff. That's on your website. So yeah, there's loads of info kind of out there. And businesses, if they've got specific queries, they can always go to their local authority and ask, because there's not many things we haven't kind of come across that we can help with.
That sounds intriguing. Are there any specific licenses or anything that someone would require? So if I've got a restaurant today and I want to open as a takeaway tomorrow, do I need to tell anyone about that? Do I need to call planning or licensing, or what's the deal?
Well, there's no specific requirement, but what you do have to make sure is that your food safety management system obviously reflects what it is you're going to do and how you change. So if you are going to do something slightly different, then you've got to make sure you've got your controls in place. So whether it's temperature control on delivery or whatever it is. But with regards license for trading, no, I would say there's nothing that I know of, to be honest, because you're not changing anything in that way. Don't know if Tay or Victoria have got anything different on that, really.
No, only if you were going to start doing alcohol and that sort of stuff, you might want to talk to your local licensing team just to make sure about that. But my understanding of it was back at the start of this that there was a relaxation of the requirement to apply for change of use for planning. You would have previously had to apply for planning change of use for that, but that's been relaxed for the moment to allow food businesses to operate as a takeaway, as I say. But if you do start serving alcohol for takeaway, which you weren't doing before, you may need to talk to your local licensing.
Yeah, and also potentially if you're street trading or if you're not operating from your own land and are known to be and so on, then there might be local requirements that are worth checking on. So Jill mentioned very kindly packaging and labelling. Is there anything that you would need to be put on? So if someone's puts their menu online and they're ordering it online from, say, one of these apps, what kind of information would they need to provide online for what's in the food, the ingredients, or the allergens, or things like that?
On allergens, they need to be able to answer any questions that a customer asks, but also not only that, they need to be asking before they get down to that point, do you have any allergens? So if there's a telephone order for a takeaway, you as a business operator should be asking that first, rather than expecting the customer to provide you with that information. And that covers your back, basically, because you asked at the outset. Your first question, I should think, on getting an order is, have you got anybody with any allergen requirements, and go from there. And that would be my top tip on allergen control, is doing that, is making sure you get the information from the customer from the very outset as to whether they've got anything that needs any changes or controls on allergen management.
That's a really good approach. I mean, I would love it if I walked up to order food and the first thing someone asked me is, do I have any allergens? Maybe it's because of the industry I'm in, but yeah, I mean, I think that is absolutely the way to do it. So many customers have ended up in really bad situations because either they didn't ask or the customer didn't tell them, and it's all gone pretty badly for both of them.
Yeah.
So.
If you make it a habit, if you get the staff make it, that's the first thing they do, then it covers you. You haven't got a problem down the line because you've asked that question from the outset. So it just makes sense, really, just to get into the habit of doing that, whether you're doing a takeaway service or not, to be honest. And it's just good practice, I would say. Yeah.
So I don't know if any of you saw it. I don't even know if this is a real photo. It might have been something doctored for people's amusement, but there was a photo going around a couple of weeks ago when the Welsh fire wall break thing went in, and it was a picture of lots of a supermarket aisle where you couldn't access the baby clothes, but a big thing of vodka that you could access, and it was essentials only. And that brings me on to this question from Jenny at Grays and Feather. Is can you sell street food? Can you sell alcohol on its own as a street food trader? Is it an essential? Do you operate as an off license? Can you operate as an off license? What would be your thoughts on that? Would that be a local issue?
I would need to ask on that one. It's not something that I would know. We're certainly happy to. We'll take that one back for you and come back with an answer on it. I think that the rules around alcohol are actually quite complicated and have changed a bit. So yeah, we were super happy to come back to you on that one, but I'll need to look it up.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's a controlled substance, essentially, isn't it? It's, you know, you can't just be selling booze to anyone. So
I think I could probably say for you obviously have to have a temporary event license, probably is one of the things before you do any trading like that, because we need to know where you're actually trading and what you're trading. But the rules are still the same for any mobile trader who's selling alcohol, is that it's 10 o'clock and that's it. You shut. So whatever, you know, if you do go anywhere and you have do happen to get a temporary event license to trade somewhere, then the rules will still apply on the trading hours on that.
Okay, cool. I think it's going to be quite tricky for the coming weeks and alcohol being covered. I think a lot of people were looking into it because they wanted to sell alcohol at Christmas markets, which are now probably not going to happen. Almost certainly not going to happen. So that's almost mute, really, that issue. But yeah, certainly the bar specialists have really struggled through this COVID issue. I think we may even be out of questions. I've been asked to signpost everyone to the NCAS advice and support. We have a whole COVID section in the members area. It's just need to log in and you can access that. That's got risk assessments. It's got a training course. It's got a pivoting document, which was written by Jenny Morris at MBE. And it's a really good piece of kit, and work through it. Don't see it as just I need to do a risk assessment or I want to do the training. It's a whole package, and it's designed to interact with each other. So there's a reason they don't give you the answers in the training. It's because the training's there to make you do the other bits. So, but yeah, do go and check it out. Do as much research as you can. Just don't take risks that you don't need to. Just be calm and take methodical steps to find out how best to start trading, and speak to your account manager, speak to your environmental health officer. If you have any concerns, obviously contact NCAS. But yeah, we have got a lot of advice and support out there, and obviously we will continue to update you as and when things change. Obviously that's been more and more difficult as the UK has fractured into smaller regions and tiers over the last few weeks. It was actually a bit of a relief when they just did a big lockdown for all of England from that point of view. It's going to be a tough couple of weeks, but it's a necessary evil, I think. And once we're through this, hopefully we can start to look forward again, and hopefully that these vaccines will start coming online in the near future, and we can all put this behind us and get back to go to lovely events and shows and parties and markets and restaurants and bars and all the lovely things that we used to enjoy so much. But guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks, Jill, for coming in at the last minute. You've been an absolute star. You always are.
Thank you.
And yeah, it's just great getting your thoughts on these things. It's really helpful for our customers. And ladies, thank you very much once again.
Pleasure. Thank you, Mark.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, then. Bye. Bye.